According to the calendar, it is now July, which means we are halfway through 2024. Part of me can't believe that we're there, and then the other half of me does actually feel like, yes, that amount of time has happened. So I don't really know how to feel, but what I do know is that once it's July, it is time for a big, huge goal setting session, and really just figuring out what to do for the rest of the year. I do a big goal setting session at the beginning of this year, of course, but when you're in January, you know, a lot can happen in 12 months. And so it's really hard to figure out like all the things that you're gonna do for the year. So what I find is best is to kind of set like my big goals at the beginning of the year, kind of more like overarching goals. And then as the year unfolds, I do a lot more refining and figuring out what I want to do in the shorter term. So I'm looking at really what I'm going to do for the rest of the year, but specifically like the next couple of months. So the next quarter-ish, and just kind of looking at ways that we can get a little bit better, because if you just keep making things a little bit better, you know, 1% better each time, every week, every month, every quarter, then you're gonna eventually get to a life that you really, really love. And that's kind of my main goal for you, is to get to that point where you really, really love your life. It's kind of like with your morning routine, you know, people ask me like, oh, how do you know, make your morning routine really good? And how do you do all these different things in your morning routine? How do you get up so early? Because during the school year, I get up at like 5 a.m. And the short answer is, I just made it a little bit better, and then a little bit better, and I make it a little bit better every few months, and then it's turned into something that I really love and that makes a big deal for me. You know, it's also been a little bit earlier and a little bit earlier, and I added a little bit more each time, and because of that, I am, you know, now we're here, and so there we are. So that's what we want to do with your goals and your plans and your planning and your life in general, is just to really make sure that you are doing all those things. So if you haven't already, pause the video and go find wherever you wrote your most recent plans, your most recent ideas, things that you wanted to do, things you want to focus on, whether that was way back in January or whether that was last week, but just have something to work off of, because I'm gonna give you some prompts to look through, but it's really important to have your focus. I like to keep mine in my bullet journal because this is something I look at every single day, literally every single day, because I mark off my habit trackers every single day. And so that makes it just so much easier for me to keep track of things. And right in the front, actually every day, I always want to skip ahead to, you know, the stuff back here, but I always stop myself and I make myself like look at each page in the front so that I can make sure that I'm looking at all those things at the beginning of the year that I said were important to me. So my big things this year have been, my camera is slightly broken, and so I'm having a really hard time figuring out if I'm in the screen or not. So apologies. I think we're there. There we go. So my big things this year were focus and balance, and really out of that, trying to be more strategic with what I'm doing so that I can have a more balanced schedule, and so I don't feel quite as manic all the time, and I just feel a little more calm about things. And really looking at my schedule and my plan for each day and how I can make that really good. And so I've been really working on like having a nice balanced schedule. Has been my biggest thing this year, and it's still my biggest thing, especially now that it's July. I go back to school at the end of July, actually. Kids go back at the very beginning of August, and so I'm already thinking, you know, I'm filming this on July 1st, but I'm already thinking like, oh, I gotta figure out like how can I incorporate this into my routine each day to make sure that I have enough time for this, that, and the other, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I've got my big goals pulled up. And yeah, most of them I'm still pretty set on. The money goal is not gonna happen, but it's fine. And I knew that going in. I was like, this is probably not gonna happen. And I'm right. I would say it's not gonna happen. But yeah, some of these things are not going to happen, but the intentions are still clear. The funny thing about goals is that even though I spend a lot of time thinking about like what my goals are going to be and what my focus is going to be and how I can like really craft things, 6 months in, I'm looking at these and I'm like, if I was writing them now, I would write them very differently. But we're not to goals yet. So first of all, let's take this one at a time. So the first thing is, now that you have grabbed your stuff, before you get really deep into it, what I want you to do is start by just writing down what are some things that are working. So what are habits that are working, what are routines that are working, what are things that you're doing on a daily basis that you like, what is working. You can pause the video and answer that. I'm gonna do it right now. We'll figure it out. Under what is working, my things that I have are journaling. I've been journaling a lot more this year and it has been life-changing. Not to be dramatic, but it's been life-changing. Having a solid morning routine and then adding in piano or yoga in the afternoons. Those are things that are working. Specifically, piano and yoga are things I would like to do more of. So I'm gonna put more next to that so I can remember that that's something that is important to me. I'm also gonna write down focusing on specific projects, which is something that is more recent. And by more recent, I mean like pretty much the summer, more recent. Like I just finished working on an email course, and courses, if you've never made a course, are massive. Like it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. They're so worth it if you do them correctly, but they're a lot. And so that is one thing that like I was like, I can't work on my blogs and I cannot do this and I cannot do this because I'm working on this. And before that I was writing blog posts, and when I was writing my blog posts I was like, I can't think about anything else, I can't do anything else. Can you hear the really bad thunder behind me? As I was working on the blog post, because like it was taking up, you know, so much mental capacity. And I've been thinking a lot about, you know, how many open projects I have. And so just in the last like 2 months, I've really had more focus on my projects. And so I'm gonna put more next to that as well. So taking things one at a time instead of a lot of time. So your next thing you want to do is, what are things that you want to add or take away? So like specifically in your daily life, what is that? All right, do you have your more and less list? So things I want to add, more piano, yoga, and dog walks when it's not 1,000 degrees outside. Sorry dogs, but it's real hot. We'll go in the morning when it's not as hot. And more focusing on one project at a time. Something I'm gonna change is I have always tried to fit projects into certain timelines. So I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna work on this month, and then I'm gonna work on that this month. Or I'll be like, you know, oh, I'll plan quarterly. And I think instead of being super strict on quarterly or monthly, I think what I'm gonna do is kind of have times of focus. And so that might be a month, it might be 2 months, it might be 3 months, it might be 4 months, just depending on what the thing is. So like this current month in July, I know that I'm gonna be working on updating my like foundational TPT course. And so that's something that I'm gonna be working on in July. I'm also gonna be working on blog posts in July, because neither of those should take the whole month. But August and September, I'm gonna be working on cleaning up my store, adding a couple products, cleaning up bundles, that kind of stuff, for those 2 months. And then for October, November, December, I'm gonna be working on my super special secret project, and that's gonna be a 3-month project. And so like just kind of going by project and having different focuses. And then I'm thinking next year I'm probably gonna have some sort of like rotation of like kind of what I focus on each time. And so that also means I need to figure out what needs to be done every week, like on a weekly basis or monthly basis, to keep the businesses running. So that's something I want to look at. Now you want to go through and look at your goals for this year and kind of adjust them and come up with your priorities. So mine, they're kind of the same thing, but they're kind of not the same thing, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't, but it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like I'm changing it, but I'm not changing it. So I think they're more focused now. They're more like down to the heart of what's really what I'm looking at is kind of what I'm looking at. Anyway, I'll stop talking. You right. Adjusting also means if you had goals like, you know, I want to make this much money and you're either way over or way under that, you can adjust now that we're halfway through and you kind of have a better idea of what's going to happen. I wrote something on my phone the other day. Okay, hopefully you have that information all out, and that's going to help you to figure out kind of a couple of things that you need to do. So I kind of boiled mine down to 4 main goals. I'm not going to tell you what all of them are, but like one of them is having balanced routine. One of them is about money, which is what we're going to talk about next. So actually I was thinking I wasn't going to get anywhere near the money goal that I had set, but I'm actually probably going to get pretty close. It's just that I was anticipating more money being earned on TPT than what is actually going to happen. So if you just found my channel, hi, I'm Becca. I'm an elementary music teacher and side hustler extraordinaire, and I just love talking business and all the things. So I have many things going on. I have a store where I sell music stuff, like I sell elementary music stuff, so lessons, slides, games, printables, worksheets, that kind of stuff. And then I have courses that I make for those people. I have courses that I make for people who would like to sell their teaching resources. I have another shop where I sell Bible lessons, and so like I got a lot of stuff going on and a lot of things going on, which is why planning is very important to me. But I honestly was anticipating my main TBT store making more money than it has, is the short story. I thought that it would, I'm trying to find a page in a notebook. I'm not seeing it. Did I not make that page? That would be really strange. It doesn't appear so. Weird. Okay. People here on this channel are here because they're also side hustlers who are looking to make their lives better, essentially. So we don't talk a ton about business, but a lot more about like the life side of that, planning, all that kind of stuff. So let's talk, that is not correct math. That's correct math. Let's talk a little bit about the money side, because that's always something that is hard to predict if you are doing things like selling things on the internet and stuff like that. But it's really important to have plans and have goals and stuff like that. So what I did, actually I kind of cheated. I do all of this. I'm best at like long form writing. So I did all this in a separate like journal this morning where I went through and I was like, okay, you know, what are we doing? What are the goals? What am I looking at? And just kind of went through and figured out like all that kind of stuff. And so for me, I looked at all of my revenue sources. So what I make from YouTube ads, which is like nothing, how much I make from my store and how much I make from my courses and like different things like that. And I figured out like pretty much what they are now, and then looked for places that could get better. So once you have everything, if you're someone who has multiple streams of income, it's a lot easier to like write them all out and then look for kind of holes and places that might need an increase, because sometimes you can like bump something up more than something else. So for me, I was looking at everything and I saw kind of 2 big places, especially with TPT, my main store being not as, it's not less profitable than normal. It just, there's been a lot of years of like huge growth, and this time there's just a little bit of not. So I figured out kind of like my average from last year and then added kind of what I'm hoping I'll be able to make this year based on my growth rate, which is how much more I've been making like month over month. So like this February versus last February, how much did I make? This January versus last January, which to be fully honest has been all over the place. But I use that kind of as a basis. So if actually they put on TPT's website, they're now putting that, so there's like a plus and like a percentage or a minus and a percentage. That's how much you are over or under that period last year. So that was really excellent, because actually it was on my list to go through and figure all those numbers out, and now I don't have to because they already have them there. But I use that as kind of like, so that I have kind of a general idea of how much I think I can make on TPT. And then I was looking through and just kind of figuring out like, okay, if I'm here, how can I make this to here? So specifics for me is I'm looking at selling more courses. There's like two big things I was looking at. Yes, I want TPT to increase, and that should happen with things that I'm already doing, but I'm looking at other things. So like I'm looking at courses, number one. And so I'm looking at making sure I do some things for that. And so looking at like, what would my action items be? Because looking at this, I'm like, okay, my courses need to make more money. So how can I do that? Well, I need to revise sales page so that more people will be converted. I need to revise or create funnels, so like emails that when someone joins my email list, then they're sent to hopefully convince people to buy my courses. I also saw that Teachable, which is the platform I use to make courses, has released a bundles feature, so I can bundle some of my products together. So I'm gonna try to do that to see if I can kind of help upsell people, so that if they're like if they're like, you know, going to buy one thing, then they're like, oh, I can get two and I can get a discount and stuff like that. So looking at that, and those are all things that should be, you know, not super extensive, but will help. I'm also going to adjust my intro course. And for my TPT sellers, I'm really looking at how I can take people through, basically how I can take you through a journey. So looking at really like each level and how we can get from one level to the other, which is why I'm really excited to finish my email course, because it kind of filled in a gap that really needed to be filled. So now I can look at that customer journey and see, okay, you can, you know, go up the ladder essentially of steps of where you want to go. And so I'm going to create a huge funnel. It's going to last years, that will start by selling people on like my first course, and then a few months after that, you know, offer them my second course and things like that. So just things like that to really try to get those selling. And then the other thing is actually promoting my courses, because I feel like I never talk about them after I make them, which is a problem because I spent a lot of time making them. And they're really good. So I've been trying to add just, you know, making sure people know that they exist so you can buy them, things like that. So that is one area that I do think can help. Now, another thing I was looking at is that my Bible lessons could definitely get better, because I opened that store in 2020 and I put a good amount of stuff in it the first like 2 years, and I haven't posted anything since at least 2022. It might even be 2021. Like, it's been a long time. I have not been posting anything. I haven't written new blog posts, like nothing. My email list has been growing and I have been making sales consistently. They haven't been growing, which makes sense because I haven't been putting any effort in, but they have been coming in, which is great. So on average, I post my Bible lessons on Teachers Pay Teachers, and then I also posted the same Bible lessons on Etsy, and they sell on both. Typically, I would say on average, like $200 to $300 a month on each, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, all over the place. So that's kind of like, on average, maybe 500 total. I want to see if I can get that up to the point, not, you know, next month, but eventually, to where I'm making 500 on each. So that way that's going to be like an extra 1,000 a month. So that probably is not going to happen in the next few months, but that's kind of like what I'm aiming at. And so again, okay, if I want to make more money out of those, I should post some new products. I should make blog posts. And I should send my email list my products. And then also I've been doing Pinterest so I can pin my blogs and products. So now I have, you know, starting with, okay, here's how much money I'm currently making. Here's how I can bump that up a little bit. I really with this list tried to make it realistic, because I am the worst at being like, oh, well, I could just, you know, make $10,000 more. But, y'all, then it's really difficult when you don't. And so instead of trying to stress myself out, I was looking at it and like, okay, what are realistic ways that I can do that? I also want to create a promotion schedule so that I know what I'm promoting at what point. But really trying to make it realistic, like, okay, I'm currently making, you know, $250. Let's see if I can bump that up to where I'm making $500 a month instead. And so, you know, that's not totally out of the ordinary. It may not happen between now and Christmas, but that's where I'm aiming, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I make my to-do list and things like that. Then I like to go through and figure out, like, okay, on a month-to-month basis, what are we doing? So I'm just gonna flip over the next page and I'm just gonna put like J for July, August, September, October, November, December. I'm gonna say next year, because it's important to delegate things to future you, also known as that's a future me problem. And so anyway, all that to say, I put each month down and then kind of figure out a focus. You don't have to figure out all of like the things that you're gonna do, but I know that July is gonna be focused on like updating that course and posting blogs and maybe some Bible lessons. Then I know that August and September, I really want to work on, sorry for the wobbly camera, I apologize. I'm not going to fix it, but I apologize. Let me right over here so I don't bump into you. So August and September, I am going to be working on like updating my shop, my main shop, and making sure that I have things. So I think in October, I wasn't going to do this, but I might in October work on some more Bible things and make that my main focus. And then make November, December my super secret project. Yeah. So you don't have to write everything out, but just kind of looking through and figuring out when you're going to do these things that you said that you're going to do. So a lot of mine actually can be done pretty quickly, which is great, but just not, you know, again, try not to bite off more than I can chew. I normally, because I have so many things going on, I tend to be really bad about trying to do all the things all the time and just really stressing myself out with all of the things that I'm trying to do. And so instead I'm trying to focus and kind of batch things a little bit better. So like get all of my blogs scheduled and then work on, or like I just finished a course. Now I'm gonna be scheduling all my blogs, which I already wrote. And so like just kind of batching things more long-term to make them more reasonable and also being more reasonable with, I just broke my pen. I guess we're done here. But being more reasonable with expectations on myself, I guess. Because a big part of what I'm working towards is a more balanced life and a more balanced schedule. And in that, that means that I can't spend 24/7 working, right? So I did pretty well this first half of the year. And I think I could do even better the second half of the year. I do feel almost like I need to work maybe a little bit more than I was working the first half of the year, because I was really working on that, like trying to be more balanced and just trying to be a little more chill. So I think the second half of the year I'm gonna be working maybe a little bit more on getting some extra hours of work in, even if that's on Saturdays or things like that, because, you know, we got goals, we got plans. I also, this has nothing to do with anything and probably not important to you, but I'm changing how I'm paying myself as well, because I'm looking for more routine and more predictability. So typically I have always paid myself a percentage of how much money I've made in the business, and I'm gonna flip that, and instead of doing a percentage, I'm gonna do a flat rate. So as long as I make enough to pay myself that, but it's again, a very realistic, reasonable amount that should be no problem. And so that way, for two reasons. Part of it is so that I can hopefully put more money back into the business to do things like buy a new camera. I also know that my computer's 4 years old and I work the heck out of that thing. So like, it might be about time to get a new one. And so like just things like that, just like making sure that I am, you know, having money to cover things like that and cover things I want to do in the future. But really the reason is I wanted more predictability in my budgeting was the main thing that I did that for, because, you know, if one month you're making like $20,000, then the next month you're making like $7,000, like things just are all over the place. It can be really, really, really hard to budget. So I'm trying to keep it more like, this is how much I get, so that I can kind of keep better, plan things better. And in planning things better, then I should be able to hit some of my more like personal goals. Like I have some debt payoff situations, also some vacations that I really want to do. And so like having a more predictable income is going to help me figure out those kind of things a little bit better, is my goal. So I might one day switch back to doing a percentage, but if I do, I think I might, I mean, depending on how this goes, but I'll probably do like, this is like my income, and then the rest of it gets like invested or like into savings accounts or something like that. So I'm gonna add that to this, which is my money journal, my budgeting journal, and just have my like plan of attack essentially, so that I know what that is, because that was something else I was working on this morning, is figuring out how I can, you know, get certain amounts of money in the bank. And so that is just something that I'm changing. And so if you thought that was interesting, there you go. All right, so there's a couple questions to ask yourself as you are going about planning the rest of the year. Make sure that you are being intentional, but also being flexible, because again, a lot could happen in 6 months and you just really don't know what's gonna happen. Oh, the other thing I was gonna say, that I forgot to say, is that I need to do is go through, especially if you're like married, go through with your, you know, spouse and figure out what your plans are. So like I need to go through and I need to make sure I add in all the school schedule stuff to my notebook and make sure I know like when things are happening. I already have my concerts for this year, and so I need to go through and like write down when my concerts are gonna be, and because I know that, you know, if I have a concert week, it's gonna be really, really busy, and that's gonna affect what I can do in that month, because if I am really busy, then I'm not gonna have as much time to work on other things. So make sure you go through and do that. Husband and I had a whole chat about, sit down chat about kind of what we together would like to do for the next few months, what trips we want to do, what we're both musicians, so what shows we're gonna go see, and by shows I mean like what concerts we're gonna attend. Like we're gonna see, so for example, we're gonna try to hit the opera this year, which I'm super excited about. We're gonna go see the Magic Flute, which is like my favorite anyway, so I'm like double pumped because we're gonna go to the opera, which I've never actually like been to the opera. I've seen many operas, but I've never actually like gone to the opera, so I'm excited for that. And then really excited to go see one of my favorite shows because it's great. And then so there's that, and then there's like there's another concert we want to go to that's like a Christmas concert, and we want to see if we can hit like the opening night of the Jacksonville Symphony, because they're doing Mahler 2, I think. Anyway, nerdy music stuff, but we went through and we like talked through different things that we wanted to do for that, what he wants to do for his birthday, what I want to do for my birthday, what we're gonna do for holidays, like those kind of things that just are really good, especially now because there's a lot of that kind of stuff. Maybe not for you, but for us there's a lot, like both our birthdays and all the holidays, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, that kind of stuff, and just like a lot of stuff going on in the fall. So sit down and like have a chit chat about those things that concern both of you, so that you know going into all of this what you can put. So for example, normally my choir sings for the Jewish High Holy Days, and so like last year they were mostly in October, somewhere in September. They changed a little bit each year because it's not the same calendar. Anyway, and so I did nothing in October because I was so busy because I was at the synagogue all the time. And we're actually not doing that this year, which is crazy, but I'm gonna have a lot more time because of that. But I do need to go through and look through and figure out like timing wise what's going on in my life versus what's going on in all this. So that's the story. That's what we're working on here on this Monday, and hopefully things will get all sorted out. I'm gonna deal with this dog who's bouncing off the walls, and I will see you later.